How do you enjoy the journey? You talk about all these ups and downs, and you talk about always growing and being in video and being a creative, and especially being a creative entrepreneur is a journey.
I think for me, my internal motto was, I'm 27 years old now. My internal motto when I started my company was, most people don't get rich or make it or whatever your success metric is on their first venture. And so for me, I was like, you know what? My 20s are meant for skill building and learning. And so I developed this motto of like, my 30-year-old self will thank me for the lessons I'm learning now in my 20s.
What is up, everybody? And this is your Creative Roadmap, episode number 3. My name is Austin Heisler, and I'm a van lifer entrepreneur. I own a social media agency. I am a fine artist. I am working on my clothing brand. And now I am a podcaster. And this is your Creative Roadmap, where we talk to creatives and talk to them about their journey, obstacles they've faced, how they get over them. And in this episode, I am talking to my friend Mukwenda and how he was thrown into the fire in his first video position and how we kind of figured that out, to being laid off and being thrown into the fire again and growing into his own business, Spark, where they help leaders spark their influence through video production, podcast production, and he is flourishing. And we will go over all of that in this next podcast, so let's jump into it. Mukwenda, when we get these things started, I like to do a little bit of an icebreaker to get us started. So my first question is, what are you listening to right now? What's on your Apple Music or Spotify?
Oh man, funny enough, I didn't realize I didn't download Kanye's first album, and I started to rewatch his documentary. I think it's called Genius or something like that, Genia or whatever, on Netflix. And I was like, man, let me download this again. So I have that download, but most of the time I'm listening to worship music. There's some folks that I've been listening to recently, a guy named Draylen Young, The Belonging Co. There's a few other ones I've been listening to, but it's usually worship music for the most part that I listen to, but I have snuck in some old school Kanye too.
Yeah, man, that's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah. So what are you still drumming? Are you still drumming a lot?
I do. I mean, not a lot. I probably play maybe once or twice a month at the church I'm at now. I relocated from Michigan, where I was living there for almost 10 years, to Texas last year. So I have a local church that I go to here. So I tried to stay away from drums just to give myself a break, but they ended up finding out that I played. And anyways, I love it. I play about once a month, sometimes twice a month. Yeah, it's fun. It's honestly it's a good. I feel like everybody needs, whether it's a hobby or an outlet where it's separate from what you usually do, because I'm not using the same part of my brain. I can just have fun and just kind of let loose. And yeah, I'm not thinking about storyboards or meetings or pitches,
Absolutely. So what's your favorite music to drum to then? Is it the same, would you say?
I mean, obviously I do mostly worship music for our church. I love gospel. I love R&B. So I feel like I don't play drums to that enough, but I guess those would be like my favorite genres to play through. I grew up playing rock music a lot, so I do enjoy playing rock too, but I don't know, a mix of different genres.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it. So Mukwenda, I was just wondering, I know you run a video production company, so kind of tell us how you got started in that and what inspired you to want to do video, and where has that journey brought you from wanting to do video production whenever that started and owning your own video production company?
Funny enough, I mean, I wish I had the story of like, since I was a kid, I was always making little videos or something, but it's not the case. I didn't pick up a camera until I was probably 18. I didn't have any interest in it. I'm a pastor's kid, and I did a lot of missions trips, and so that was a lot of my life. Played sports and stuff, and I definitely had a mind for business and strategy and different things like that. Honestly, I was a marketer first in a sense. That's what I was passionate about more. But I ended up realizing, well, in order to do marketing well, you got to do content well. And for some reason, I had a natural eye for composition and whatnot. And this is the older days of Instagram. And so I would take a bunch of stuff on my phone that was like an old Android. But, I started photography, just playing around, having fun. And then I saved up enough money to get my first camera. And then honestly, how I really got into video was the church I was going to at the time in Michigan. They needed someone to do video announcements. And the guy that was doing it had moved, and they're like, hey, you have 1 week. And I was like, all right, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I just YouTubed it and spent hours and hours, endless nights trying to figure it out for something that's super simple, but it was all new to me, even how to hit record and transfer an SD card. And I download the 30-day trial of Premiere Pro, and I was just trying to figure it out. And so I just did that. My first one was terrible. And then they're just like, it's okay, you'll do it, get another shot. So I did that for like 3 years. And doing that repetition every week, got me better. And then, people start seeing it and they're like, hey, can you do this little thing for me? And, little thing here, little thing there. And then you end up, oh man, I guess I'm freelancing and I didn't realize it. And so it was honestly very much an accident that I got into it, but I loved it. I realized that I love storytelling. With my missions background, you're always crafting a story to engage donors of what you're doing and all that different stuff. So I kind of paired that. And I was always intrigued of what would persuade someone to action, whether it's, again, in a nonprofit sector, either to donate or to go on a trip or to be activated into something. And so that really intrigued me of like, because really all video it is expressing emotion or invoking a feeling of some type of emotion. And so, and hopefully for action in some ways. And so that was kind of where the spark came from in that. And then I worked at an advertising agency for about a year. And it was great and learned so much. My mentor who owns that agency to this day, they did big work with Chick-fil-A. They did work with Hungry Howie's if you're in the Midwest and a bunch of other bigger brands. And so I learned a ton from their environment. They had some of the best video editors I'd ever met. They had some of the best cinematographers I ever met. And so I just learned a ton from that environment. And I ended up getting laid off after a year, my whole department. So I was planning to stay there, as long as I could. And my mentor who owned the company, he was in the HR room with me crying. He felt really bad because I didn't do anything wrong. Everybody loved me, but he was like, hey, I think you're supposed to start your own thing. And basically I had a lot of mentors were like, hey, listen, I was 20 at the time, about to turn 21. And they're like, you're single. You don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage. If you're going to do this, like, do it now. So basically that was kind of it. And then I hopped couch to couch and YouTubed it and read books and tried to just figure it out and took people to coffee like, hey, what am I, how do I do this thing? And just took one step in front of another.
Absolutely. So you were kind of thrown into the fire from going into the church and not knowing what to do to starting your own, getting laid off and starting your own company, like just thrown right into it. But I want to rewind it back to when you were first starting out in the church and you really didn't know what to do with video production, like how did you handle that? Like what were some things that you did to overcome those challenges?
I think there is a beauty in being naive because, it forces you to figure it out. I think sometimes like we're scared to try something new or like it seems daunting. And so it's like, oh man, like I don't want to do it because I don't know enough and it's too big of there's too many fishes in the pond in a sense, But that's, to me, it was a challenge. And, I had people just saying, hey, you can do it. They kept pushing me. And the feedback was helpful. And for me, I just kind of kept myself as a constant student. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to learn. It's going to be terrible, but it's fine. But, the progress bar is always, it's predicated on where you started, right? And so if you compare yourself to someone that's been doing it for 10 years, yeah, you'll feel terrible about yourself. But if you compare yourself to when you started, it's like, oh man, I've come a long way. I used to not know how to do any of this stuff. Now, okay, I have a camera and I know how to use the lens, or I know what aperture is, or what shutter speed is, and I know how to use it well. And so I literally, what I would do is like, I have opportunity or I would just shoot something to learn, and I would, YouTube something and learn a new skill. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to apply that to this next project, whether it was an editing trick or some type of composition. And like, oh man, I really like that. So I'm going to like, I always, to this day, Vimeo and Instagram, half of it is just filmmakers that I really love that I'm like, I want to emulate what you do. Like, oh man, I didn't even think of that shot. I'm going to think of that concept or how I can take that concept and put it into what I'm doing. And that's how you learn. It's just like, you intake some information and you try it. And maybe not everyone's a hands-on learner, but so much of video is just hands-on experience. Like you just have, you can read a lot of stuff in a book, but there's just certain things like you just have to try. And so I think the not knowing anything was somewhat of the adventure, like the fun of it, that you're just trying new things.
Absolutely. How important was it for you to surround yourself with those people that would support you along the way and just give you that encouragement when you're in those trials? How did that affect your journey?
Oh, I mean, it was everything. I mean, I feel like I got this from my father. He always used to tell me relationships are your greatest resource. And so for me, like, I was fortunate that I surrounded myself with people who were, so encouraging, and they wanted to see me win and they wanted to see me thrive. And I had it, I sought out the creative community around me. And so I would ask them all the time, like, hey, can I shadow you on a shoot? How do you do this? How do you do that? And they were just very encouraging. Where I was at in the Midwest, like, and I've heard different things depending on where you live. Sometimes the West Coast can be a little tougher to break into because people can kind of be a little guarded. And it might be more of a generalization, but at least in the Midwest, people were very open to being like, yeah, let me show you. Like, someone taught me, so I'm going to pass the time. And so I was very blessed by that. So I honestly, I just, you need community and just in life, period, especially when you're starting. There's so many critical voices out there. And honestly, I would say 80% of them are your own voices in your own head that get you in the way from progressing and getting better, and actually starting and doing what you want to do. And so having those voices that can combat that and say, hey, I believe in you and all those different things is huge. And so part of that is, seeking it out. Some of it is you got the negative people around you. It's like, all right, I'm going to just practice the art of limited association. It's like, yeah, we'll see each other just every once in a while, but not enough for you to influence me because I know where I'm going. And so, no, it's everything. The times I felt like, man, because the journey of entrepreneurship, period, and then also in video, it's like You have ups like, man, this video was amazing, best thing I ever did. And then you have such a low moment after, like, man, I messed up, or card got corrupted or whatever. I don't know what I'm doing. Like I still have those moments of like, I mean, I directed my first TV commercial this summer, and then sometimes I'll do a shoot. I'm like, do I know what I'm doing? Like you just internally doubt yourself, but it's part of the journey. And then again, that's why you need people you can lean on, you can be open and honest with, and they can encourage you.
Absolutely. So how do you enjoy the journey? You talk about all these ups and downs, and you talk about always growing, and being in video and being a creative, and especially being a creative entrepreneur, is a journey. So how do you find the joy in that journey? What are some things that you do to enjoy the journey, whether it be the highs or the lows?
Well, I mean, one, if you're it's good to be, I'm very much a planner. I'm very much a long-term thinker. In my head, I'm in my 40s, and I'm setting up my 40s, right? But the future is connected to the now, right? What's next is connected to this very current moment. And so if you only live in the future, you're thinking about what's next, I mean, it'll drive you crazy. And it drove me crazy many times, caused a lot of anxiety. And what I realized was, if I can get, 1% better every day, that's the joy. And again, you can look back and see the incremental progress. I think for me, my internal model was, I'm 27 years old now. My internal model when I started my company was, most people don't get rich or make it or whatever your success metric is on their first venture. And so for me, I was like, you know what? My 20s are meant for skill building and learning. And so I developed this model of like, my 30-year-old self will thank me for the lessons I'm learning now in my 20s. And, it doesn't always have to be a win. I don't always have to get it right. If I win or if I lose, I'm building that internal muscle and those lessons that are going to serve me for Mukwenda in my 30s, if that makes sense. And so for me, it's like, okay, yeah, this challenge happens, or I lose this deal or this pitch, or I mess up on this shoot, or whatever it may be. It's like, it's okay. Like I'm building the muscle, and my 30-year-old self is going to thank me for sticking it out, to keep going. And so anyways, that's my internal motivation. And yeah, I guess finding the joy in it is, and it's hard, because sometimes you can be so in the weeds of it. It takes, and I think that's why a community is helpful. It takes a community of people to be like, man, like, hey, you're doing this. And sometimes you can just, something that's incredible, that's something you maybe prayed for or longed for to do, you're doing. And sometimes it takes you a second, but hold up, I'm doing what I always imagined I would want to do. Because it doesn't always feel like what you think it's going to feel like. But you have to take a step back. Man, like, 5 years ago, Mukwenda would have killed for this opportunity. Or 5 years ago, Mukwenda, like, only dreamed to be in this scenario. And so I think sometimes it's just reflection and gratitude to be like, wow, like, look how far I've come,
Yeah. Reflection and gratitude. I feel like that is how we enjoy the journey. You kind of hit the nail on the head, where sometimes we can be where we want to be and we don't even know it. It doesn't feel like we thought it would feel like. And I just want to repeat that, because I was like, that is so true. Sometimes we don't realize what we want. Like, you're still going to be in the weeds. You're still going to be facing challenges, but you are where you wanted to be. So let's fast forward to you were kind of thrown into the fire of doing the whole church thing, to now where you're thrown into the fire again. you get laid off and people are telling you, I think you should do your own thing. How was that second time being like thrown into the thick of it compared to the first time? And what did you do the second time? Maybe applied some things that you learned from your first learning experience.
Yeah, I mean, it stung for sure. It was really hard. Um, my dad always has given me very valuable pieces of advice, throughout my life. And I remember he told me right after, I called him, and he told me, he said, Mukwenda, don't burn a bridge. You don't know when you need to cross it again. And I'm really glad I listened, because that agency is now one of my biggest partners. We've done a lot of work together over the years, me not being an employee. And but it was really hard. It was a new challenge I never, faced before. I wasn't getting any support from my parents, so it's like, okay, like, all right, I'm going to jump and just take it one step in front of another. And fortunately, I was in a position. Not everybody has this scenario. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids, so I didn't have anybody. I didn't have sick parents I had to take care of. So like, there was a lot of things, even though I was dead broke and had no money, there's a lot of things still in my favor. Like my cost of living were insanely low. Like, as long as I could just afford food, I'll be fine. And so I think that allowed me to explore and experiment and just kind of go. But it was hard. There was a few months where I was going back and forth. And then I remember there was a moment where I basically was like, all right, I'm going to commit to do this thing. I even remember I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and he was like, you got to stop calling yourself a freelancer. You have to treat it as a business, and that's going to just shape your mindset. Like, I'm doing this, fully commit. And so I said, all right, I'm fully committing to this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm fully committing. And it's just every day. It's just, you just take an affordable step forward every day. But yeah, it was very hard. I mean, as far as the lessons that I learned before, it was very much the same habit. So like, I'm going to take the most affordable step forward. If I don't know, I'm going to ask questions, or I'm going to figure it out somehow. And I'm just going to keep taking the steps, right? Because I'm a strategic planner by nature, but sometimes you can plan yourself out of action, because you'll just spend months and years. I remember I had a client recently that I did consulting for, like, last year. He had worked on a startup for 4 years, poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into it, and never made $1. And it's not because the business couldn't make money or there was an opportunity. He was just he overthought everything and was planning out everything. It's like, I had told him at one point, brother, like, at some point, somebody's got to make a transaction, and you just got to start. And it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be set up perfectly. We just got to go, and then things will start to fall into place. And so, yeah, again, like, there is a beauty in being naive. If I knew everything that I know now, or I knew of the challenges that were going to come, or knowing that I was going to basically be homeless for a bit and sleep out of a walk-in closet, or I was going to lose deals. There's going to be times that, like, I have, literally almost zero in my bank account. If I knew all that, I probably wouldn't start. But that naiveness keeps you going, because it's like, I can take a step forward today as long as I woke up. All right, it's another opportunity. You shake it off, and especially being a business owner, so much of it is just mentally how you handle rejection and how you handle no's and how you just keep moving forward, and just knowing that, hey, just because this project may have ended or this person said no doesn't mean it's not the end. There's someone who will say yes. You just got to keep going until you hear the yes. But yeah, that's the mindset I had. And again, if I started a business today, I would do it entirely differently, because I had no idea what I was doing. But you just do what you know, and then you learn along the way, and then that's part of the journey.
Plan yourself out of action. I feel like so many young creatives need to hear that. It is so easy to dream big, but to get to those dreams, you just need to take actions. And that is so, so true. Take the actions. And when you were talking, I was just thinking about my own journey. And you have to take actions and not be afraid to like know what you know and like take those raw first steps, because it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be messy, but you're doing it, and then expanding on what you said is learning along the way. I feel like that is so important too, is taking those action steps and then looking back and learning those lessons. And that is how you're going to succeed. So I want to jump into finding inspiration. I feel like as a creative, that is so critical. Is you need to be inspired. You need to have something to like look to and get creative with. So, what are some of the greatest films that have inspired you on your journey?
Oh man, films. Uh, I actually, it's funny. I don't think I've ever been asked that. There was a movie that really, really inspired me years ago. Um, it's called Lion, and it's about a boy who, um, was lost his way from his family in India, and basically became homeless. And you see the conditions in India and some of the very dangerous situations he was in, and he ended up getting rescued. And it was very. They showed they didn't show everything, but they showed a lot of details. It was a tough watch. It hit on your emotions and your touch because you're literally following this boy, and he gets adopted by an Australian family. He moves to Australia. He grows up, and he's trying to find where his mother is because he never could find his way back home. And this is when Google Earth just came out, so he literally uses Google Earth to like find his way back home. It's a true story. It's a beautiful story. And I remember I was like, man, if they were to put some type of like adoption agency nonprofit link or QR code at the end, I would give everything I had right then because that thing moved me so much. And I was like, that's what I want to do is like move people, with what I make, again, make them feel something. And I do remember that was one of the films that definitely really inspired me. I think for me, again, I'm an avid Vimeo consumer, and so I've just over the years had a ton of DPs and directors that I admire that I constantly, just see what's the new stuff that they're putting out, and and just getting inspired by that, and how to tell a story, and how you can be very creative, unique, and it's funny, especially nowadays, everything's flipped on its head as far as like everyone has such short attention spans now. So you have to figure out how to tell a story very quickly and get someone's attention right away. And so it's changed the dynamic of how we shoot, how we film, And so, um, people don't, unless you're in a movie, people don't, even when you're in a movie, people don't like things that move slow. They're like, get to the point. and, but yeah, that Lion was one of a movie that really inspired me for sure.
Absolutely. Send me some of those Vimeo links and we'll plug them in the show notes and the YouTube comments below. So if anybody wants to be an aspiring filmmaker, they can have some inspiration. So I'll ask you that and get you those at the end. But we're running into our last few minutes. So give us a plug on what you're doing, your company, future projects, and the floor is yours to just plug yourself away.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you for allowing me to be on here, and whoever watches this, and yeah, hopefully some of my story could be inspiring, in your journey. My company is called Spark, and my website is sparkyourbrand.me. And basically, we help leaders to spark their influence and to help them to amplify their effectiveness and their impact. and we do it through video. And so we do a lot of promotional videos and brand story videos. But recently, what I've been more excited about this year that I've gotten into a lot has been actually funny enough, producing video podcasts for companies and for leaders, and doing it at a high level, as well as doing video courses for organizations, nonprofits, businesses, to teach and be able to kind of scale their impact. And we do commercials and all that different stuff. And so yeah, that's kind of the things that is my focus right now. And yeah, it's super exciting. I'm also in the middle of starting a new venture to pour into young Christian business owners in the DFW area, and we're going to start doing events and all this different things. It's called Faith Hustle, and you can find that on Instagram at Faith Hustle. But yeah, really exciting stuff. It's cool to see certain things that, again, I've always prayed for and hoped for, and God doesn't forget those dreams. And it just takes a process you have to go through. But yeah, just stepping out on faith a lot this year of just trying new things. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mukwenda. I really appreciate your time, man. And I will follow all your stuff and continue to follow Spark. And I didn't know you're doing Faith Hustle. So that's epic, man. So I would help you out with that in any way I can. Reach out to me if you need any support, and I'd be happy to lend my skills to help you out wherever you are with that. But I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, so I'm going to let you go. But take care, Mukwenda. We will stay in touch.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.